I bought the sofa they're sitting on. This morning I called to ask when the wedding is. She laughed. We did it yesterday, just our inner circle. 15 minutes later, they marched into my kitchen with a lawyer and a paper. Sign power of attorney, Mom. Then my doorbell caught their whisper. If she hesitates, say she's confused. Confused? Watch me. I opened a ledger, locked my accounts, and hit record. They think I'm alone. They think I'll fold. In 30 seconds, you'll hear why they're terrified of a timestamp. Morning light skims the harbor and climbs my wall like a careful cat. Silver paws of water padding across the ceiling of my studio above the boathouse. I dial my son, Owen, to ask a simple question about a date and a cake and a chair where a mother might sit. His phone connects, and it isn't his voice that answers. We actually did it yesterday, just our inner circle, Sable says. Syrup sweet, perched on the sofa I bought last spring. My mouth remembers to close. My hand does not remember to let go of the phone. In the closet, a pale sea blue dress waits with its tag still whispering price and promise. I picture the photographs I will not be in, the frame-shaped absence where my face was supposed to go. Yesterday, I hear myself ask, and the word has the thin, cracked edge of a teacup that's been washed too often. It was intimate, Sable purrs. Very us. Owen's voice arrives from somewhere behind her, a weather report from another room. Hey, Mom, he says, small, already rehearsed. I press speaker, so I can set the phone down before my fingers start to tremble and embarrass me. When were you going to tell me? I ask, trying to keep the librarian in my voice from shushing the hurt. We posted already, Sable says, as if the internet were a form of compassion. Thought you'd see it. Special people, she adds, and if a smile can cut, hers is a clean blade. I end the call before it ends me. The room hums with harbor light, the kind that makes even dust look deliberate, and I pull my old lined notebook from the drawer. Household help, bills. I labeled it years ago when I still believed help could be made neat. I turn to a fresh page and start copying the truth into ink. Loft rent, 3 winters. Groceries, monthly, even when their fridge already had more sauces than food. Utilities during emergencies that arrived exactly on the due date. The sofa beneath Sable's immaculate pose, the cash for content trips so their vlogs could be authentic. I total the columns and feel my stomach tilt, like the dock in a sudden wake. Enough, I say to the room, and the room believes me. I set my credit union appointment card on the table. Bashirwuampia.m, underlined once, not twice, and slide it beside the notebook like a promise kept in advance. By the door waits the unopened cloud doorbell in its white box. The one Maeve brought over with lemon bars and a look that said, "Please, let the world knock before it enters." I lift the wedding shoes from their tissue and imagine standing in the back of a small room, pretending not to exist while vows are exchanged around me. I put them back because pretending has always been more expensive than leather. When Owen was a boy, he would grip my chin in both hands to make sure I was looking, as if love were a lighthouse that must be faced head-on. These last few years, he has learned a new art, sliding his eyes past mine, the way people slide past a charity table when they are late for lunch. The slippage began after I quietly paid off his maxed cards during a restaurant slump. Dignity has many costs, and one of them is eyesight. From the trunk, I bring out the small lock tin and hold it the way I used to hold his feverish head. Inside is a folded receipt from a bookstore that no longer exists, proof that I once sold my late husband's rare first edition to erase a debt Owen never knew he owed me. I lock the tin again and return it to its burrow of quilts. Outside, the lane smells of tide and rope and rosemary. Maeve Drummond, my neighbor retired ferry captain, keeper of an herb bed as orderly as a ship's log, lifts a hand when she sees my face. "Tea later?" she calls. I baked the kind of lemon cake that forgives. "Hold a slice for me," I say, and she reads in the tilt of my voice that her porch will be needed. Across the lane, Harlan Pike measures a fence with his clipboard in disapproval. "More fixtures?" he asks, eyeing the box by my door as if it were graffiti. "Security," I say. "We prefer a cohesive aesthetic," he recites. "We prefer consent," I answer, and he retreats with the wounded dignity of a man who believes he is the weather. In the evening, I make soup I can't taste and turn on the lamp by the window. Boats nod on their lines like elders agreeing with a story they've heard before. I open Sable's channel and there it is. Micro wedding magic. A thumbnail of her lifted chin and a ring that knows its angles. I click and the video blooms champagne flutes. A mother who is not me, a father who is not my late Robert, and Sable saying, "When you know, you know." I watch my absence performing its trick. It makes everyone else glow. Family is a feeling, Sable adds, and the feeling apparently has a velvet rope. My hands are cold though the room is warm. The harbor has crawled into my bones and brought a little January with it. I pause the video to breathe, and in the frozen frame, the champagne bucket throws back a sliver of mirror from somewhere off camera. I move the playhead a hair, then a hair again. Owen steps into the reflection for a blink, and a price tag winks from the sleeve of his suit. Not a sin, exactly. Just a seam showing, a thread where the story was stitched too fast. I take a screenshot and save it to a folder I name Out of Habit and Hope. Evidence. Do they imagine the camera is a priest that absolves them from the truth it cannot see? My phone buzzes. Big love today, from Sable. Heart emoji attached, as if emojis could sign affidavits. Owen's message follows. Don't be mad. It was last minute. I delete both and open my notebook again. On a new line I write, "Not a bank," underlining each letter until the page threatens to tear. I slide the credit union card beside the phrase and feel, for a moment, taller. I look at the cloud doorbell waiting like a good intention and imagine the soft chime of boundaries. Maeve knocks just then, a light courtesy knock, and sets a foil-wrapped parcel on my step. "Tomorrow," she says through the door. "Say the thing you mean." I don't open. I answer anyway. "I will." I tell the wood and the air, and whatever gods attend small harbors. I eat the smallest slice of lemon cake and let the sugar steady me. Then I wash the plate and set it to dry, because order is the first language I learned and the one I can still speak when my throat is full. I sit at the table and rehearse one sentence until it fits. I will not be erased from my own life. Outside, the harbor leans into night. Masts click like knitting needles, and the water keeps working. I lay out tomorrow's clothes, fold the dress back into its paper, and place my keys on top of the credit union card as if weight could make a promise heavier. I think of Robert and say, "In case the dead are listening, I'm keeping what you left for me, love." I turn off the lamp and the studio exhales, and for once the silence feels like ceremony instead of punishment. In bed, I hold the phone and do not call back. I set an alarm for 8. Redundancy will do. Before sleep finds me, I reopen the screenshot and look at the little rectangle of truth, the suit tag flashing in the mirror like a wink I wasn't meant to see. I whisper, "Document or it didn't happen," and slide the phone under my pillow. Sleep comes slow. Dawn turned the harbor pewter, and I reached the credit union door before the lights warmed on. Nora, the teller who has watched me cash widow's checks and Christmas envelopes for years, waved me inside with a look that said she already knew the shore was shifting under my feet. "Morning, Ms. Armitage," she said. "You're early." "I'm here to stop a leak," I answered. She seated me, angled her monitor so I could see, and we opened the valves. Rent transfer cancel, utilities cancel, the monthly miscellaneous that was really an allowance cancel. Nora suggested a verbal passphrase. I gave her a line from the poem Robert read at our wedding, and she typed it like a blessing placed between us. She nodded once, then asked whether anyone else should have access, and I said no. Just me, my signature, and the quiet I chose today alone. Nora printed the cancellations in neat triplicate, blue stamps, blooming times like tide marks, Ba Shijo, Ba Arsha Yi, Ba Arsha Si. She signed, I signed, the branch manager, Miss Pena, added her looping initials and a card with her direct line. "If anyone calls insisting they're helping," she said, "they'll need the phrase and they'll have me." I could have cried, but instead I organized the pages into a manila folder labeled Cancellations Timeline. Hurt pressed behind my eyes. Anger discovered its shoes. "One more," I said. We added a fraud alert, set two-factor on every touchpoint, and reviewed beneficiaries like a woman sweeping glass into a single honest pile. Tara Velasquez. Ms. Pena added gently, "Elder law. She's formidable." I slipped the card beside the stamped pages like a lighthouse slid into my pocket. The folder felt heavier than paper, as if time itself had agreed to testify for me. From there, I walked to Seacoast Savings, a newer lobby lemon bright with printer heat, where a banker named Caleb opened a fresh account as I created a fresh email, no autofill trails, no shared recovery. We toggled paper statements on, digital shadows off, and I watched him set alerts to loud. The temporary card looked harmless, which is how knives pass for butter spreaders. Back home, I sat at the table and dismantled convenience, revoked Owen and Sable's bill pay access, changed long-loved passwords, closed the window that let them breeze through my life. When the last lock clicked, I sent a boundary that needed no garnish. I won't be financing you anymore. I did not apologize. I did not explain. I let the period be a door. Silence answered first. A silence that felt like clean air after a storm sick room. I kept breathing it in. By afternoon, the studio was a small paper harbor statements stacked like docks, receipts like coiled rope when the latch turned without a knock, and my door swung inward. Owen came first, smile set to hopeful. Sable glided behind him, expression pressed as carefully as linens, and a third man followed with a handshake already reaching my space. Gideon Marr, he announced, polished as a ship's bell. Family law, we help. This is my home, I said. Announce yourselves before boarding. Owen winced a little, as if manners were a splinter. Mom, we were worried, he offered. You sounded off. I sounded like a woman who learned she isn't in her son's inner circle, I said, and laid my hand flat on my papers. The table did not wobble. Neither did I. Even the harbor seemed to pause and listen at my window for what came next. Gideon opened his folder and fanned papers with the confidence of a magician about to make someone else's wallet disappear. He slid a document toward me with 2 fingers and a practiced smile. Just a temporary power of attorney, he said, until you're less stressed. We can take your to-dos for a bit. While I'm what? I asked. Processing, he said, voice upholstered in reassurance. Life changes disorient even the capable. My hands, famous for their tremor when emotion leans too close, stayed steady as stones. I lifted the paper lightly, read the first clause, then placed it back on the stack like a moth I chose not to keep. No, I said. That's my whole sentence. Owen's face pinched. Sable's chin rose half an inch, the universal signal for condescension. The harbor clock ticked, and my pulse kept time with something finally mine again. Owen, I said, you may sit in my kitchen when you knock, not when you decide the hour suits you. He tried the boyhood tone that once opened every door. Mom, nobody's saying you can't handle it. This would just ease things. It would ease your bills, I said. Sable's smile sharpened. You're reading hostility where there's concern. I'm reading the contract, I answered. Gideon tapped the signature line with his pen. Sleep on it, he advised. I sleep on pillows, not traps, I said, and gathered my papers from beneath his hand, one at a time, the way a seamstress rescues pieces from a careless table. You'll need to leave now, I added, and my voice held. We'll speak through counsel. Owen's eyes searched mine for the mother who rescued deadlines. She didn't come. The door closed on their offended silence and my calm. I called the number on Miss Peña's card before the kettle finished its first impatient cough. Velasquez Law, a receptionist said, and then a woman took the line whose voice balanced steel and linen. Tara speaking. I told her the short version, and then the long one. When I spoke the words power of attorney, she breathed once, measured. My mother lost her home to a guardianship she didn't need, she said. I specialize so other daughters don't swallow that story. Can you come tomorrow at 9? I can, I said. Bring your ledger, the unsigned document, and the business card, she added. Photograph both as they sit now with your phone's time visible. Metadata is a truth that remembers. I set the papers on the table, took the pictures, watched the seconds stamp themselves, and felt less alone than I had in months finally. Before I lost my nerve, I booked the steel shutters and the cloud doorbell for the earliest appointment tomorrow. The dispatcher promised a technician with clean boots and kinder eyes. I called the Dock Association next and requested a new 4-digit code, mine alone. I used the year our library first opened, which felt like signing a card addressed to the future. Then, I taped a discreet dock entry log inside the boathouse door. Date, time, plate, in water-out notes, neat columns sharpened by a fresh pen. If you arrive, I told the empty air, you will leave footprints. saying it seemed to change the house's posture. It shifted from apologizing for existing to standing on its own old beams and listening. The harbor answered by tapping rigging against masts, a little Morse that said, keep watch, you are not wrong to guard yourself. Evening stretched thin and bright over the water when my phone vibrated with a message so long it unfolded like a scarf. Sable, of course, CCing Owen, rehearsed concern in fluent paragraphs. She'd read about confusion of aging, about how stress can lead to impulsive decisions, about options for collaborative guardianship that preserves dignity. I rested the phone face down and let the last of the light polish the floor. I will not be erased from my own life, I said aloud, because sometimes a sentence must hear itself to be real. Then I opened my calendar and typed Vlasquez, Goodling Onpia.m bring everything. I set an alarm, then a second alarm, then placed Ms. Peña's card beside my keys. Resolve arrived like a tide change, no trumpet, only pressure. The house seemed to square its shoulders with me and look toward morning. I liked that quiet company. I was rinsing my cup when the soft chime slid across the room, a polite bell that used to mean library holds, now meaning something with teeth. Credit alert, a hard inquiry in my name at C. Sisher RPM. The night before from a lender I did not recognize. I dried my hands very carefully, like a surgeon preparing for an honest cut, and took a screenshot. Then I forwarded it to a folder titled FRAUD Potential and wrote the time into my ledger. Document or it didn't happen, I told the cupboards. Hurt stepped back, anger stepped closer, resolve took the chair between them. Someone ran a check with my name. I closed the window, locked the door, and kept the evidence. The harbor knocked once on the pilings, a witness. I breathed, filed, and let the night settle around the little fortress I was building carefully. Tara's office smelled faintly of citrus and copier heat, the kind of clean that says, paper lives here. I set my tote on her table and began laying out what I had. The help ledger with its careful columns, bank printouts with yesterday's blue stamps, the cancellation receipts timed like tide marks, and screenshots of Sable's inner circle post, including the frame where a suit tag winked in the mirror. Tara didn't rush. She lined everything with her palm flat, librarian slow, and glanced up at me. You've kept better records than most firms, she said. I exhaled a sound between a laugh and a bruise. I shelve for a living, I told her, even when I'm not in the library. She tapped a sticky note against my ledger, adding the date. Good, she said. We will proceed like people who expect to be believed. She read, asked short questions, and sketched arrows between dates. Patterns clear, she said finally. This is elder financial abuse, dependency cultivated, boundaries punished. Money used as leverage, exclusion used as control. We'll document relentlessly because the law may be slow, but it worships timestamps. She slid me a checklist, download full statements, export phone logs, keep a contemporaneous diary of calls, visits, knocks, photograph any paperwork where it lands before anyone moves it, and we harden the estate perimeter, she added. Your will, beneficiaries, no one with a conflict of interest named for anything. Defensive planning isn't paranoia, it's housekeeping. The word housekeeping made me want to cry, so I nodded instead. I can do housekeeping, I said. I have been doing it with my whole life. We spoke about guardianships as tools and as weapons, about good POAs and bad ones, about how language can be a crowbar when placed in the wrong hands. I'll draft a simple capacity statement for you to sign with a notary, Tara said, writing my name at the top of a yellow page. We'll also schedule a clean independent evaluation, not because I doubt you, but because they will. We cut off the path they think they've paved. She pushed a glass of water toward me and met my eyes. One last thing. Talk to your bank about beneficiaries and consider a small trust wall, so there's nothing to seize by surprise. The goal isn't secrecy, it's friction. Friction, I repeated, tasting the grit of the word. I can live with a little friction. Outside, the air felt rinsed. Resolve stood up straighter inside me. I tucked Tara's checklist into my tote, pressed the receipts flat with my palm, and walked home along the quay. Boats bobbed like punctuation in a sentence that hadn't ended. I tried to imagine a day when I would read for pleasure again, and not just for evidence. At my door, I paused to breathe like Tara had taught me in 3 quick words. Slow, low, steady, and let my shoulders drop. Maeve arrived moments later with 2 enamel mugs and a thermos jacketed in a knit sleeve that read, "Captain, you survived the lawyers," she said, passing me a mug. "Now you get tea." We sat on my step, knees nearly touching. "I kept a habit you might find useful," she said, matter-of-fact. "Since the ferry days, you log tides, you log arrivals. People are boats with legs." She lifted a clipboard from her tote. Lines and lines of tidy entries, date, time, plate, in-out notes. "I mark the unusual with a dot," she said. "2 dots if it smells like weather." She flipped to 3 recent days. "Here and here," she said, tapping. There was Sable's car, noon the day before my boundary text. There was Gideon's sedan at Badr AM the morning. They dropped by, then again at E-Centre TPM, idled and out. "Before you told them no," Maeve said. "That's not care, that's choreography." We made copies at my dining table with my little scanner, the machine purring like a satisfied cat. Maeve initialed each sheet in the corner and wrote, "True to my log with the time." "Do you want me to testify if it comes to that?" she asked. Her eyes were seawater frank. "Yes," I said, and the relief that followed was almost dizzying. "Then I'll wear the jacket with brass buttons," she said. "Judges like brass." We laughed a small dock laugh, the kind that smells of rope and rosemary, and filed the pages under witnesses' logs. The knock that came after lunch was polite, professional, and practiced. A woman stood on my step with a badge at chest height and a folder in her hands. "Ms. Armitage, I'm Lena Chow with Senior Services," she said. "We received a report from a concerned family member and need to do a quick wellness check. May I come in?" I thought of Tara's slow, low, steady, and stepped aside. "You may," I said. "Please remove your shoes," I added, and she did without protest, which calmed something flinty in me. "I'm not here to take sides," Lena said as we walked through the studio. "I'm here to verify safety." We moved room to room. She looked inside the fridge and saw greens, eggs, yogurt with the foil not yet lifted. Opened the cupboard and found beans and tea. Glanced at the bathroom and saw clean towels folded and stacked by color. "Medications?" she asked. I showed her the vitamins and the aspirin, the bottle I use for an occasional stubborn knee. She nodded, made notes. "Finances." I showed her the binder Tara had coached me to start tabs for bank, utilities, logs, messages, with yesterday's stamped cancellations clipped neatly. She read a line, another, then looked at my face. "Thank you," she said. "This helps." At the door, she handed me a card. "I have to write a note," she said. "From what I see, no cause for concern." The phrase loosened something tight between my ribs. After she left, my email chimed. Lena's name. A short follow-up, sharing resources about coercion and undue influence. "You're doing the right things. If you need anything, reply." I pinned the message and slid her card into my binder under professionals. Back on the phone with Tara, I scheduled the evaluation with Dr. Felix Noor. "Not a hoop," Tara said, anticipating my resistance. "A shield. He's meticulous and uninterested in family theater. Then we'll get along," I said. Tara hesitated, voice lowering a key. "Any debts in your name you don't recognize? Cards opened for convenience? Loans you didn't take?" I thought of the tin under my quilts, and the sick comfort of secrets kept for the wrong reasons. "There was a bookstore receipt," I said. "Years ago, I sold my husband's first edition to erase a bill I paid for Owen. I told her about last night's alert." "Credit inquiry," I said, and the words tasted metallic. "Pull your full reports and freeze everything," she said. "We'll assume unauthorized until proven otherwise. Bring the receipt." "It tells a story, a judge understands." I fetched the tin, unfolded the old paper, and set it in the light. The ink had browned at the edges, the date was clean. I took a photograph with my phone and slid the original into a sleeve. "Evidence," I whispered, and the librarian in me nodded. The installers came early, cheerful in the way of people who fix real things. They measured twice, then a third time, and fitted the steel shutters with a hiss and a clank that felt like punctuation. The cloud doorbell connected on the second try. "Tap here for live," the technician said, guiding my thumb. "This saves to the cloud, this pulls clips, this shares to your lawyer." He set the chime to a modest tone and showed me the log where time would write the rest. When they left, the studio was itself plus armor. I walked the rooms and heard the house answer back with a new kind of quiet. At dusk, the camera caught Owen's face, close as a memory. He tried the old doc code, and it didn't take. He tried again and failed. He stepped back, wrote something on a slip of paper with quick, irritated strokes, and tucked it into his wallet. Then he looked at the door as if doors owed him, and left. I saved the clip twice, once to the cloud, once to an external drive, and labeled it like a book. Entry: a team at Owen time water date. I didn't cry. I watched it once more and filed it under boundary enforced. The filing didn't make it hurt less. It made it hurt honestly. Sleep would not come, so I opened Sable's wedding video again, this time letting my eyes do what they were trained to do: slow down. Frame by frame through the toast scene, a polished champagne cooler flashed a ghost of the room. On the far wall in that reflection was a digital clock on a microwave, Sushashen PM. I scrubbed ahead to the sunset segment, the golden spill over their shoulders, the caption, "Golden Hour Gratitude." I paused, backed up, squinted. I dragged the timeline back to the toast, pausing again on Sur Seine. Then I checked the weather app's historical data. The sun set for that date in our town. Too early by nearly 2 hours. I took screenshots of the reflection, circled the numbers, and saved them to my Video Anomalies folder with a note: Clock versus sunset staged chronology. I did not feel triumphant. I felt steadied, the way a handrail steadies a flight of stairs you would climb anyway. For a few minutes, relief seeped in, thin but real. Not everything was guesswork. Some things could be named and dated and shown to strangers who wore robes and listened for a living. I made chamomile, stood at the window, and watched the harbor breathe. The shutters were down, the log was taped, the binder was growing a spine. I set my cup on the sill and said to the water, "We're building a case," and the water, being water, kept working, which felt like agreement. Tara called it building the paper shield, and I liked the way it sounded: honest labor that keeps weather from getting in. We met at her office with Maeve and Ms. Pena from the credit union, and Tara read the statement of intent and capacity aloud before anyone touched a pen. I, Ruth Armitage, being of clear mind and steady judgment, declare, the words were dry as flour and just as necessary. A notary with careful eyebrows watched each hand move. Maeve signed as witness, brass buttons on her jacket bright as harbor bells. Ms. Pena signed next, bank blue ink, neat as rope coils. The law worships timestamps, Tara reminded me, dating every page with the exact minute and scanning it into 2 separate drives. If they say you're confused, we want a record that says you were precise. I felt taller, not because the paper made me bigger, but because the room believed me enough to memorialize it. Back at my table, we built the binder like a captain stocks a ship. Tab by tab, Tara labeled with a fine black pen. Bank statements, fraud alerts, cancellation receipts, passphrase confirmation, video doorbell install log, saved clips index, messages, texts, call logs, voicemails transcribed by date, vlogs, Sable's uploads, screenshots, metadata notes, the mirror tag image printed on glossy paper, Harlan's notices, meeting summaries I had annotated in the margins, social worker Lena's card, her follow-up email printed and pinned, medical appointments scheduled, Dr. Noor's upcoming evaluation letter. I slid each tab into its colored sleeve and felt the binder acquire weight, then spine, then purpose. Paper is how we make memory reliable, I said. Tara smiled. Paper is how we make memory admissible, she corrected. When she left, I ran my palm along the cover as if smoothing a quilt. You're my shield, I told it, and for once a thing in my house answered by simply being what I needed it to be. I put on my navy sweater and walked to the waterfront bistro where Owen worked, not to ambush him, just to mark reality with my eyes. The place smelled of lemon zest and hot pans. Servers flew like swallows. Owen clocked me and pivoted into the walk-in refrigerator with a tray, a movement so practiced it read as choreography. I took a seat at the counter and asked for water. A line cook with sleeve tattoos muttered to the dishwasher, not knowing whose mother I was. He said the bridge loans are killing him, the cook said. He needs a miracle or a mark. The dishwasher shrugged, a rain gesture. Owen reappeared with his professional smile, the one that fits like an apron. Hey, Mom, busy, he said not unkindly. I won't keep you, I answered. I came to see you working, that's all. He nodded and fled to the burners. Outside, under a gull that scolded everything, I lifted my phone and recorded a quick memo with the date, time, and those two overheard words, bridge loans, because contemporaneous notes are a librarian's gift to her future self. I didn't cry. I catalogued. By the time I reached the lane, Harlan had stapled a fresh HOA bulletin to the community board. The headline twitched with dignity, a note on aesthetics and community safety. The second paragraph leaked contempt. Recent additions such as industrial shutters and intrusive surveillance devices may lower neighborhood harmony and perceived property values. He did not use my name, but he used my house. We encourage all residents, especially elders, to rely on family rather than gadgets. It concluded, as if reliance were a virtue and privacy a stain. I stepped close, held my phone steady, and photographed the sheet with the board's clock in frame. Shuri, sisharanpaya.m. The timestamp glowed like a small truth. "You want to make me sound unreasonable," I said under my breath, "so your gate can come back wearing pearls." Harlan emerged from his porch with a measuring tape and an audience of one grin. "Community feedback, Ms. Armitage," he said. "The shutters are aggressive." "So are men who measure other people's fences," I replied. He flushed the color of overcooked salmon. I filed the photo under HOA bulletin timestamped and walked on, paper in my bag, tied in my lungs, confidence rising, one annotated inch at a time. For a week the house learned a new quiet. No knocks, fewer calls. The doorbell chimed only for packages and once for a delivery driver who blessed my camera and asked if I liked the shutter color. "Steel," I said. "The shade is called mine." I slept, not deeply, not long, but the kind that doesn't flinch at ghosts. In the afternoons I climbed to the ceramic studio above my place, and the owner let me center clay on a wheel. The first time the wobble corrected under my palms, I laughed so hard the gentleman at the sink applauded with a sponge. "Look at you," he said. "Gravity's apprentice." On Saturday I walked the stalls by the quay and bought a sea glass charm, a green soft oval drilled for a cord, the color of old bottles forgiven by the sea. "For what?" the seller asked. "To mark a decision," I said, "and to remember it when people perform amnesia at me." I strung it on a spare ribbon and felt it cool against the hollow of my throat. For a few days, I let myself believe the wellness check had ended the story, the kind lie relief tells when it wants you to nap. Then Sable uploaded caregiving for elders, gentle routines. My phone served it to me as if it were soup. I watched out of professional obligation, I told myself. The truth was nausea. She moved through a soft focus montage: teacups, journals, hands placing blankets. At Lingua Shaba, the angle shifted my porch, my railing, the nick where Maeve and I once dropped a flower pot. The shot held a beat too long, a high, cooing voiceover about safety over fear. The shutter slats were visible at the edge of frame. Those slats were installed 2 days after the micro-wedding video. I paused, backed up, paused again. In the cut before, Sable wore a mustard cardigan with horn buttons. In the porch shot, she wore the cream sweater from her grocery haul vlog dated last month. Old footage spliced to sell a brand, or someone had walked my steps without permission. The difference mattered less to my pulse than to my case. I took screenshots, circled the slats and the sweater, and titled the file Caregiving Porch Post-Install Continuity. Continuity, I murmured, is a kind of confession. I felt neither dramatic nor paranoid. I felt like a person watching hands. She did not invite touch her door. The next morning brought the lopsided weight of certified mail. The envelope was thick. My heart did its learned stunt jump first, then perform calm. Inside sat a petition for guardianship, supported by declarations from Harlan Pike, concern about paranoia, industrial shutters, and community unease. A clinic tech irregular medication usage. I recognized neither her name nor my alleged pills, and a psychiatrist whose letter used the phrase refusal to cooperate, though I had never met him. The paper smelled faintly of cologne and printer heat. I sat very still. Then I called Tara. "They filed," I said. "Of course they did," she answered. "We expected this. Now we try the case." Her voice shifted to checklist mode. Photograph the envelope and the contents as arrived. Scan to the binder HOA, medical, social worker. Note receipt time. Breathe. Breathing, I said. The house watched me follow instructions. Photos with the kitchen clock in frame. Scans aligned to edges. My neat note. Received as 6elo ampea.m, signed for by me. The air was thin, but it still worked. I opened my laptop and pulled up Lena's email. There it was. Her subject line plain as toast, follow-up, resources and the paragraph that mattered. From what I observed, no cause for concern. File closed. Attaching a template for reporting coercion, water, undue influence. Reply if you need support. I printed the note, slipped it under social worker, then printed the resource flyer and highlighted the phrase, coercive reporting. I whispered, "Thank you, not to a person, but to a system that, today, had behaved like a person." On the binder's spine, I traced the labels with my finger. Bank, video, messages, vlogs, HOA, social worker, medical and felt, absurdly but actually steadier. The charm at my throat tapped once against my collarbone. Outside, a gull drew a rude shape in the air and laughed like a witness who had seen worse. I didn't smile, but my mouth remembered how. The false lull had ended. The storm had sent paperwork ahead of itself, polite as a pianist. All right, I told the house. We will play our part. By Tuesday afternoon, Gideon struck first. An urgent email hit Tara's inbox, ex parte motion, in which I was painted as paranoid and isolated, a danger to my own decisions. He attached Harlan's HOA bulletin as proof of my instability and a clinic tech's affidavit about irregular meds I did not take. They want a temporary guardian today, Tara said, voice flat. We answer today. We built our answer like a bridge. She uploaded the cloud doorbell clip Owen at my keypad, failing the old code, glancing at my lock time stamped to the minute. She added Lena's follow-up, a screen cap of no cause for concern, file closed. Then Tara's cursor stitched 3 fabrics together, Sable's vlog metadata, Maeve's doc log, a weather app's archive for the so-called inner circle date. On Sable's timeline, the sunset arrives at Sishasen. On Maeve's paper, Sable's car idles here at noon and again at Arwo. On the weather screen, the entire afternoon is categorized as cloudy, with no golden hour to bless anyone. Tara arranged them side by side. At the courthouse, a duty judge read in silence, lips moving once on the word "looty" as if tasting it. Gideon argued that cameras can be faked and neighbors can be mistaken. And sponsors can schedule uploads. Tara replied, mild as tea, but timestamps don't pray, they print. The judge lifted the ex parte motion, weighed it like a bad fish, and set it down. Relief denied, she said. Set this for a full hearing. I want testimony, not adjectives. Outside, the wind had that courthouse chill that finds the buttons you forgot to fasten. Sable stood on the granite stairs with her phone held low, eyes bright and angry. Owen looked past me the way tides look past rocks, persistent, wearing. Gideon buttoned his jacket, already recalculating. They'll regroup, Tara said. Expect louder gestures. That night, Tara's paralegal, Quinn, sent a message with fireworks hidden in the subject line, IP trace. The psychiatrist's support letter. Its originating server block belonged to Sable's management agency. Plant it, Tara wrote back. I filed the screenshot into the binder under Vlogs Forensics and labeled it like a storm, digital trail originating at management. Proof had stopped whispering. It was speaking in print. I set the binder on the table, palm flat, and felt the tide turn under the paper. Now we're seen, I told the room. The room for once answered yes. Softly. The blowback arrived in the form of a polite hold. Nora called from the credit union, her voice patient and sorry at once. Because of the guardianship filing, we've flagged activity for a fraud review, she said. The roof transfer will have to wait 48 hours. I understand, I answered, and I did, but the understanding didn't stop the bucket from filling beneath the window. Rain had finally found the leak the roofer was supposed to seal. Drip, pause, drip like a metronome marking money I could not move. He texted an apology and rescheduled for next week, when funds clear. Water answered faster than banks. I am not drowning, I told the room, shifting the bucket. I am documenting. By noon, the internet decided to save me from myself. Sable's followers swarmed my Yelp page with trembling concern, pasting one-star pity like confetti. Nextdoor posts bloomed. Elder at risk, confused neighbor, unsafe alone. They used the language of care the way thieves use gloves. Harlan circulated a petition titled Community Safety, a phrase that always means someone else should be smaller. Elders should rely on family rather than gadgets, the bullet point sneered. I took screenshots carefully, catching avatars, timestamps, and the telltale repetition that proves a script. Motive is shy until it sees a camera. Tara moved faster than gossip. She tracked down the clinic tech, whose affidavit Gideon had stapled to his story. We met at a coffee shop with forgiving music. The woman's name was Priya, badge lanyard still around her neck like an alibi she hadn't meant to wear. "I'm mortified," she began, palms up. "Your daughter-in-law asked me whether no prescriptions might indicate neglect. I thought I was signing a routine confirmation that you aren't on meds. I never examined you, Ms. Armitage." Tara's pen clicked once. "With your consent, may we record a clarification?" Priya nodded, voice steadier when the red dot lit. I did not assess Ms. Armitage's capacity. I simply verified her purchase history shows over-the-counter vitamins and aspirin. My earlier signature was misused. We saved the audio, saved the transcript, and slipped copies into the binder behind a new tab clinic correction. Meanwhile, the fraud review slowed my life to the speed of paper. The roofer texted again, "Call me when funds free up." A drip plinked into the bucket with comic timing. "Not funny," I told the ceiling, and the ceiling, being old wood, declined to argue. I moved books off the low shelf and laid towels, triage in a domestic war. "You can't keep me," I told the water. "You can't keep me." The petition kept gathering signatures like burrs on wool. Harlan knocked on doors with his clipboard and his smile that always stops just short of teeth. I caught him on the boardwalk and said, "If you have concerns about my shutters, bring bylaws, not rumors." "We're protecting values," he replied. "Then value consent," I said, taking a photo of his petition with the date stamped in the corner. Screenshots went into the binder under HOA petition motive. Online, strangers diagnosed me between latte photos. "Unsafe elder alone," one caption read. Above a picture of my own shutters. "Someone should intervene," another wrote. And several someones agreed. I took screenshots, every avatar in time, because malice loves to change its clothes. Tara texted, "Document. Breathe. Don't engage." I listened and let the kettle be my rebuttal. The fraud department finally called with a voice that sounded like seatbelts. "A microloan opened in my name 6 months ago. Small line, big rate. Auto draft turned off after the first withdrawal failed." "We'll mail you the application copy," the agent said. My mouth produced politeness. My ribs produced heat. I set the phone down and pressed both palms to the table until the wood remembered me. "Owen," I whispered. The name a door swinging on the hinge I had oiled my whole life. It was not only Sable. My boy had crossed a line and called it love. At the courthouse filings desk, a probate clerk with an efficient bun explained the next hazard. "If a judge thinks you're at risk before the hearing, they can assign a temporary guardian," she said. The standard is low when the paper looks loud. Tara's jaw set like a clasp. "We'll make an emergency packet capacity statement. Lena's closure, doorbell clip, doc logs, vlog metadata," she listed. "If they try ex parte again, we'll be there before the ink dries." We spent the afternoon photocopying, hole punching, labeling spines until the binders stood like a small choir. That night the rain turned confident. I woke to the sound of drip becoming pour, the bucket overachieving, the towels a gray resigned fleet. By the time I reached the closet, the box with the pale sea blue dress had taken a wound. Cardboard softened, tissue surrendered, the color bled into a bruise. I lifted the dress, and it wept from the hem. "You were never meant for their photographs," I told it, and carried it to the trash. I did not stage a vigil. Ritual is not always candles. Sometimes it is a plastic bag tied tight. Grief tried to turn me sentimental. Resolve reminded me to label the ruined box for the roofer's insurance. I wrote "water damage" in black marker and dated it like a gravestone. "I am not my clothes," I said to the bucket. "I am the woman who stopped the transfers." Morning brought another round of public diagnosis. Someone posted my porch screenshot with the caption, "Pray for her," which is what people write when they want applause for meddling. Maeve answered in the only register she respects, fax. "The lady reads tide tables for fun," she commented. She labels her flower. She's fine. I screenshotted her comments too because courage also deserves a file. When the mail brought the microloan application copy, my hands shook, but only until I saw the penwork. The R in Ruth leaned left, a flourish Sable uses when she signs shipments for her brand. I placed the page under Forensics handwriting and made a note for Tara. In the afternoon, Tara arrived with banker's boxes and a temper she kept in a tidy holster. We assembled emergency packets on my dining table, copies, tabs, indexes, a contents page that would make a judge exhale. If they move to appoint someone temporarily, Tara said, we file this within the hour. Truth, but organized. Judges appreciate organized truth. Between packets, we ate toast and tried not to perform hope. Tara studied the waterline creeping across my ruined box and said, loss makes a persuasive witness. It tells the court what paper can't. It tells the cost. That evening, a stranger messaged me to repent my shutters and accept my children's guidance. I blocked him and wrote the time in my diary the way sailors mark reefs. You mistake possession for love. I typed but did not send. Near midnight, the doorbell's motion alert rustled my phone. I opened the live view to the sidewalk and saw Gideon's profile catch the streetlight like a blade. Owen stood beside him, hands jammed into his coat pockets, the way boys hold marbles they aren't ready to lose. They didn't ring. They conferred. The doorbell picked up their voices cleanly, the mic faithful as a clerk. If she hesitates, emphasize confusion, Gideon instructed. If she cries, say temporary. If she mentions the social worker, call it performative. Owen nodded, jaw working. He looked tired in the way of people who mistook dependency for devotion. We'll be gentle, he said, and I felt the word crack. They left without knocking. I saved the clip, named it Coaching Sidewalk Audio, and backed it up twice. Then I stood in the kitchen with my palms on the cool counter and let the fear travel through without building a nest. They are organized, I told myself. So am I. I wrote a fresh line in my ledger beneath the day's entries. Coaching captured, rain contained, dress gone, mother intact. The house smelled faintly of steel and chamomile, a church that believed in hardware and tea. I thought of Owen as a baby, fists opening in sleep, the way his breath once matched the harbor's hush. You are still mine to love, I said to the past, but not to fund. That distinction felt cruel and holy. I slid the coaching clip into the binder's messages tab and printed a short index so I could find it blind. Then I set 2 glasses by the sink, because grief sometimes brings a guest, and I intend to serve water. Outside, the gutter ticked like a clock mending its manners. Inside, my binder gleamed. Night gathers on the harbor in the old language rigging, tapping masts, hulls murmuring, the slow breath of water against pilings. I pull my help ledger into my lap and turn, pages the way a nurse checks a chart. Calm hands, awake eyes. Each line item glows a little in the lamplight. Rent, groceries, emergencies, cash in envelopes, and beneath it all, the quiet math that says love can be miscounted as money if you don't watch. I slide open the trunk, take out the small tin, and unfold the browned receipt from the bookstore that died before Robert did. First edition, sold to erase a bill Owen never knew existed. The date sits there like a witness who won't leave. I touch the paper and tell my husband what I should have told him in life. I kept us afloat. I also taught our boy the wrong tide. I think about leaking Sable's fraud, the mirror tag, the porch footage, the continuity errors that click together like a lock, the IP trace Quinn found. A post would take 10 minutes. The internet would carry it like a gull, carries a shiny thing loud, briefly beautiful, then gone. I draft the caption in my head anyway. Care looks different when it bills you. I even open her channel, thumb hovering above the comment field, the heat of humiliation rising like a bad weather front. My phone buzzes. Tara. Court, not the court of public opinion. We win where records breathe under oath. I close the app and stare at my reflection in the black glass. You want relief, I tell myself, but you're building justice. The harbor ticks in agreement. Tears come for Robert, not for them, the man who would have sharpened my pencil and my courage and told me to file clean. The next morning, I sit under a framed map at Dr. Felix Noor's office, where the furniture is undistracting and the magazines are alphabetized. He greets me with the unhurried kindness of a person who trusts clocks. "We'll work at your pace," he says, then actually means it. We start with memory, 3 nouns, then 5, then a story thread I make into a square and hand back to him whole. We move through executive function, a trail-making test that snakes A to eat to B to R, a set shifting task where I sort by color and shape without letting my hands boss my head. Numeracy follows, balances, simple interest. What happens when an autodraft fails and penalties flower? I draw a clock, set the hands to 10 past 11, explain what 11 past 10 is not. He asks for category fluency, name animals for a minute. I give him tide pool to pasture. He asks me to subtract sevens. I give him a neat staircase. He slides a pretend contract across the desk and says, "Tell me where the trouble could hide." I circle clauses that could unhouse a woman and underline the phrase that hands the house to her son. We rest. He asks me what the harbor sounds like at night. I tell him the truth, like someone who loves you turning a page. He smiles, then lets the smile fade. "I almost left this field," he says, voice lowered to the register you save for things you can't unknow. I testified in a case where the guardianship was a theft with paperwork. I still hear the way the mother said please to the wrong people. He looks up at me the way doctors used to look at the saints in painting, checking for light or wounds. "Your clarity is medicinal," he says gently. "Not because you perform competence, but because you evidence it." He explains that the formal report will follow scores, interpretations, a conclusion that uses the right legal words. But before I go, he adds one more sentence that sets my spine. "No one gets to paper over you." Back home, I sit with the choice Tara named and the temptation I nearly fed. I open a blank post window, type 12 words that would ruin Sable's brand in an afternoon, and watch them glitter like broken glass. Then I select them and press delete. "I am not here to humiliate," I say out loud. "I am here to testify." I email Tara instead. "I will keep my evidence in court. If I slide, call me back to the rail." She replies with one word, "I," because sometimes a lawyer is a captain who sees the shoal you don't. The next day, Tara spreads our case across her conference table like a chart. Sticky flags bloom yellow for proof, blue for people, red for lies that need light. "Blueprint," she says, and taps the sequence with a pen. 1. Capacity. Noor's report sits on top, not a vibe, not an opinion scores and narrative, anchored to tasks. Judges believe tasks. 2. Wellness closure. Lena's note no concern, file closed, the template for coercion reporting attached. It neutralizes their concerned family song. 3. Financial timeline. Your cancellations with stamps, passphrase confirmation, fraud alerts, the freeze, the story of a competent adult making prudent defensive moves. 4. Digital forensics, vlog metadata, the IP trail that routes the psychiatrist's letter to Sable's agency, the porch footage that can only exist after the shutter install, the mirror tag, the clock versus sunset, the weather archive, time is our best witness. 5. Third-party logs, Maeve's doc entries, your door log, installer invoices with completion times, independent systems agreeing with each other. 6. Impeachments, Priya's recorded clarification, Harlan's HOA bulletin, and petition showing bias, the coaching clip with Gideon feeding Owen lines. We show method, not accident. 7. Motive, the microloan in your name, the pattern of dependence, the brand deals that prefer an elder as content, not as a person. We don't moralize, we demonstrate. She pauses, eyeing the stack the way a carpenter eyes a beam that must bear weight. Order of witnesses will matter, she says. We start with Noor, then Lena, anchor with Maeve, let Priya relieve the court of any misplaced trust, and finish with you clear, factual, unsloppy. I nod. I can do unsloppy, I tell her. It's my native tongue. She writes unsloppy on the margin and grins. We won't dance for outrage, she adds. We'll count for truth. The meeting ends with binders zipped like life vests. On my walk home, the gulls argue in their usual vowels. The shutters blink in the afternoon light. The doorbell winks its little witness lens. The sea glass charm taps on my chest like a metronome. I feel the ache of the dark night still, but it has edges now. Sorrow is a room. I've found the door. Near dusk, Quintera's paralegal with the 6 cents for servers pings our group thread. Suppoina compliance received. The subject line says, and then the payload. Platform confirms Sable's micro-wedding upload was scheduled days before the supposed ceremony and that segments were reshot to align with sponsor timelines. There's a screenshot of the back-end schedule, UTC stamps, editor IDs, an auto-caption mismatch note, and a line from the platform's custodian of records. This reflects routine creator workflow. The schedule precedes the public-facing narrative. I print it, slide it behind Vlogs Forensics, and write in my index, MR2, chronology fraud confirmed. My relief is not glee. It is architecture, the feeling of a beam settling true. I hire a locksmith to rekey the boathouse. He arrives with a van that smells of cut brass and hands like a poem about precision. He replaces cylinders, shows me the new bite on the keys, and says, "Test it yourself." I do, twice. When he leaves, I sit with my notebook and write a single sentence on a fresh page, neat as a prayer. I mean, this time, I will not purchase love. I leave the pen uncapped beside it so the ink can breathe. Then I put water on for tea, pull the quilt Robert favored over my knees, and sleep the sleep of someone who has chosen a forum and a future and will keep choosing both until the gavel agrees. Preparation took on its own weather, a steady barometer rising. Tara stacked binders like ballast. Colored tabs winked, bank, video, messages, vlogs, Hoey, social worker, medical. I read my statement aloud until the syllables fit my mouth without wobble. Maeve stood by the window with a brass ship's bell. Answer, then wait for the bell, she coached. Clang. Too long. Clange. Perfect. We practiced gentle, exact, unhurried. Facts don't need hurry, Maeve said. They already happened. Dr. Noor printed charts and slid them into a slim black portfolio. Tasks, not adjectives, he reminded me. We'll keep the court in the realm of tasks, Lena replied, all to Tara's email. I'll appear if subpoenaed. My notes are clean. Priya. The clinic tech practiced her clarification with Tara on speaker. I never examined Ms. Armitage, she repeated, voice steadier each time. My signature was misused. Resolve settled into my ribs like a new brace. Morning in probate court smelled faintly of old carpet and sharpened pencils. Owen wore a new suit that didn't fit his shoulders. Sable wore tasteful black pearl studs, and the air of someone who had chosen her lighting carefully. Gideon greeted the clerk as if they shared a golf course, and arranged his papers with the tenderness of a man petting his own argument. I touched the sea glass charm, felt its cool, and faced the bench. Good morning, the judge said. Call the matter. Gideon rose. Petitioners seek guardianship for Ms. Armitage, he began, voice buttered. We are confronted with a tragic decline. Paranoia, isolation, susceptibility to doc gossips. He handed up exhibits with theatrical economy. Harlan's bulletin about my intrusive surveillance, Priya's affidavit about irregular meds, and a letter from a psychiatrist none of us had met. We ask the court to protect a beloved elder from those exploiting her fear. He nodded toward Tara without looking. A man blessing a nuisance. Tara stood, binder already open at a tab that said proof. Before we drown in adjectives, she said, a correction. The wellness check closed with no cause for concern. She tendered Lena's note. Further, cameras don't create paranoia. They record reality. She cued the doorbell clip of Owen, trying my old code, failing, trying again, then looking up and leaving. Stamped time, date, lane. A quiet in the room lengthened. If Ms. Armitage is unsafe alone, Tara asked, why attempt entry without invitation? The judge's eyebrow climbed half a roof tile. Gideon reclaimed the floor. Doorbells can be misinterpreted, he said. And neighbors, however charming, can be wrong. He gestured delicately toward Maeve, who stared him down, the way you stare weather that thinks it can surprise you. Sable went first. Her oath sounded like a brand deal. Bright, correct, monetizable. Tara approached gently. Define inner circle, she said. Family and close friends, Sable replied, smiling at the word family as if she'd invented it. And Ms. Armitage, she's complicated, Sable hedged. We've been her caregivers in everything but name. Caregivers, Tara repeated, lifting the wellness closure letter. You reported her to senior services. The case closed, no concern. Yet you continue to describe decline online. Sable's smile thinned. Tara clicked her remote. The screen showed the porch B-roll from Caregiving for Elders, my railing, my shutter slats then paused. This angle exists only after shutters, Tara said. Either you filmed later than claimed, or you entered property without consent. Which? It's B-roll, Sable said brightly. Everyone uses it. Everyone? Tara asked. Or just creators whose narratives require pliable time? Sable's eyes flashed. We told a story, she said. Stories help people. Truth helps courts, Tara said. Owen took the stand, jaw set to brave. We love my mother, he began. She's been confused. Money choices. Shutting us out. Tara's voice softened, which somehow made it sharper. When did you last visit without asking for money? She asked. He blinked. We talk all the time. That's not the question, she said. When was the last visit that didn't include a request? He opened his mouth, closed it, searched a ceiling that refused to help. I don't remember, he said finally. Tara slid a page from bank. Do you remember opening a microloan 6 months ago in your mother's name? Owen went very still. No, he said. I would never. She displayed the application, the R in Ruth leaning left with a loop I had seen on Sable's unboxings. We'll revisit the signature, Tara said, after foundation. A digital forensics expert testified next, hair neat, tone unexcited. The platform's back-end shows scheduled upload on the micro-wedding video days before the supposed event, he said. Edit logs confirm reshoots to align with sponsorship windows. He clicked to another slide. The psychiatrist's support letters originating IP traces to a block used by Ms. Kincaid's management agency. A ripple crossed the pews like a breeze in an auditorium. Gideon objected to innuendo by IP overruled. Then the handwriting analyst, an older woman with tweezers for eyes, projected 2 signatures side by side, Ruth on the loan application and Sable on brand shipments, a left slanted loop that overcurled the R like a guilty hair. Distinctive motor habits, she said. High probability common authorship via stylus. Sable stared at the floor, the way people stare into ponds hoping for prettier reflections. Everyday witnesses, Tara said, inviting the tide in. Maeve stepped up in her brass-button jacket and placed her dock log on the sill, like a hymnal. Arrivals and departures, she told the court. 3 days around the so-called Inner Circle event. Petitioners' vehicles in and out before Ms. Armitage's boundary text. And again, the morning they arrived with a lawyer. She didn't glance at Gideon. 2 dots mean it smelled like weather, she added, and drew a small smile from the judge. I watched the clerk align Maeve's sheets with my door log and the cloud clips. Timestamps marched in formation. Truth loves consensus. Lena took the stand next, careful and kind. I conducted the wellness check, she said. Ms. Armitage's home was safe and orderly. She manages her finances. Her medications are over the counter. I closed the case with no cause for concern. Tara asked, in your experience, how is concerned family sometimes used? Lena chose exact words. In coercive situations, reports can function as pressure, she said. The form is legitimate. The motive isn't always. Gideon objected to generalization, sustained as to motive. The line still landed in the room like a caution. Priya, the clinic tech, approached the microphone with a visible swallow. I need to correct the record, she said. I never examined Ms. Armitage. Ms. Kincaid asked whether no prescriptions could indicate neglect. I thought I was confirming over-the-counter purchases. My prior signature was misused. Relief scraped my throat on the way out. Tara's pen did not move. The correction had already been indexed. Harlan tried for composure and tripped over privilege. The shutters, he announced, are hostile to community aesthetics. Tara smiled like a person who has finally reached the easy part of a hike. You proposed privatizing dock access last year, she said. Ms. Armitage opposed you. Irrelevant, he snapped. BS is never irrelevant, Tara replied. Your bulletin calls cameras paranoid and elders safer under family control. Did you know petitioners attempted entry without invitation? I heard something about that, he hedged. From whom? People talk. And you print, Tara said, holding up his petition. You want the gate back. You used my client to sell it. His mouth formed a protest. The judge's eyebrow returned to the roofline. I took the stand last. The oath tasted like water. Tara kept me to tasks. We walked through the ledger, the cancellations with blue stamps, the passphrase, the locks, the lines I had written in my notebook like a citizen's creed. "Why did you stop financing your son and his wife?" she asked. "Because I mistook dependence for devotion," I said. "Because love is not a receipt." "Do you fear living alone?" "I fear living erased," I said. The doorbell and the shutters are not paranoia. They are punctuation. Gideon approached for Cross with a soft smile that believed itself a scalpel. "Ms. Armitage," he said, "you've been coached, haven't you?" "I've been counseled," I said. "The difference is intention. Neighbors fill your head. Neighbors fill casseroles," I answered. "My head is mine. You installed industrial shutters to keep out weather," I said. "And people who mistake my house for theirs. You blocked your son's number after he stopped calling me without asking for money. He pivoted to the psychiatrist letter, found it reduced by IP to a marketing department, and pivoted again. You are angry," he offered, like a consolation prize. "I am organized," I said, and the room made a small, forbidden sound. "Any redirect?" the judge asked. Tara lifted one finger, briefly. She faced me. "What was the first sentence you wrote to yourself when all this began?" I looked at the binder, then at her. "I will not be erased from my own life." The bell in my memory chimed. "Your Honor," Tara said, "one more exhibit for impeachment." She played the sidewalk audio, Gideon's voice low. If she hesitates, emphasize confusion. If she cries, say temporary. Owen's assent. The sound felt like a cold hand on the court's shoulder. Gideon leapt. Out of context. "In your own voice," the judge said, palm raised. She turned to counsel, expression cooling. "You will review your ethics manual tonight. Any further coaching that approaches subordination will be met with sanctions." Silence arranged itself neatly on every bench. By the time we rested, the room had shifted temperature. Not sympathy, something sturdier. Recognition. The judge dismissed us for the day with instructions for closings tomorrow. Gideon's shoulders slumped a half-inch. Sable's jaw tightened like a lid that wouldn't seal. Owen looked young the way men look young when their scripts fail. In the corridor, Maeve squeezed my hand. "You were unsloppy," she said. Dr. Noor gave a small nod, the kind men give when they have no wish to own your moment. Lina smiled without triumph. Priya cried in the restroom and came out calmer. Tara closed the binder, the sea glass pressed cool against my pulse. "Tomorrow," she said. Then the tide turns in ink. I breathed in paper, dust, old carpet, sharpened pencils, and felt something that wasn't victory yet. It was permission to believe in it. Morning returns me to the same courtroom, but the air feels new. Judge Corin Yates studies our stack, then me, then the petitioners. She speaks in clear, spare sentences, the kind a record can hold. Ms. Armitage is fully competent. The wellness check closed with no cause for concern. Dr. Noor's evaluation is excellent and specific. Tasks completed, judgment intact. By contrast, petitioners' submissions show misrepresentations and a financial motive. This court protects autonomy. Her gavel is a single syllable. Guardianship denied. She adds what Gideon will hear in his sleep. Sanctions and fraud referrals remain under advisement. The room exhales. Tara closes our binder as if tucking in a child. Maeve's brass buttons wink like small congratulations. Priya presses her palms together in apology and relief. Dr. Noor simply nods, scientist of the obvious made necessary. Gideon's jaw works, counting costs. Sable looks at me as if a camera might still be rolling. Owen stares at the floor tiles. 10 years old again. Sorry but not apologizing. His lawyer reaches for him. His mother does not. On the steps, Winterlight finds the granite and makes it honest. Sable's eyes are knives that never learned to cut bread. "You humiliated us," she says. "I organized," I answer. Owen tries my name. "Mom, can we talk? Talk where the record is kept," I say. Maeve steps between the weather and me. Tara touches my elbow. Paper first, then air. I feel an ache, the size of a clean break, the kind a surgeon celebrates and a mother grieves. "Today you got your name back," Tara says on the steps, her hand still on my elbow. "They don't get to define you by need. They tried to buy parenthood at a discount. Maeve adds, deliciously unlegal. The court raised the price to honesty. Dr. Noor lingers, briefcase in hand. If you ever doubt, he says, do something with steps. Brew tea, sort a drawer, walk a pier. Competence rides movement. Priya touches my sleeve. I'm sorry, she whispers. I signed a convenience and they turned it into a weapon. You corrected it, I answer. That's the part my ledger will remember. Gideon passes, chin high, voice low, into his phone. Sable matches his pace, a storm naming itself. Owen pauses once, the tiniest hitch, and almost looks up. I nod without rescue. We walk in different directions, and for the first time it feels like choice, not exile. I sell the boathouse with its good bones and tired roof. The harbor buys back its view. I pack my books, my needle kit, the tin with Robert's receipt, the binder that learned to breathe under pressure. I leave the echo of every unpaid thank you and take the light. My realtor says, "You'll miss the water," and I tell her, I intend to visit it on purpose. I move into a sunny apartment above a ceramic studio where the floor remembers dancing. Afternoons, clay centers under my palms and stays. Mornings, I take the ferry for no reason except the wake's handwriting. Freedom becomes a habit you can set your watch by. The check I write carries Tara's mother's name on its memo line. An elder abuse nonprofit receives a sum that could have remodeled a kitchen and instead will repair a life. Tara stares at the note, blinking like someone reading a small, bright weather report. For your mother, I say. For every daughter who had to learn law because love failed. She nods once, the solemn way people do when thank you would be too thin. I hang a clean wind chime on the new balcony and teach myself the language of its little bell. I stock my pantry because I want to. Buy flowers because they ask nicely, and sleep in sheets that smell like lemon and not like paperwork. I keep the binder on a shelf in case memory ever needs a witness, but mostly it sits there like a retired officer, respected, unnecessary. One morning, an email from Lena arrives, a resource flyer with the subject line, "If anyone needs this, share it." Yes, I write back and thank you. I forward it to Maeve and to the community board, then print a copy and tape it beside the mail slots. No fanfare, just a hand on a railing someone else will need. A week later, a letter finds me with handwriting as neat as a well-drawn clock. Dr. Felix Noor thanks me for reminding me why this work matters, and adds a line I will keep under glass. Tasks, not adjectives. I slide the note into the tin behind the first edition receipt. Grief and goodness, filed together, as if the heart were also a cabinet. Sometimes Owen texts nothing at all, then deletes it before I can see. Sometimes Sable posts a sunset that the weather refuses to corroborate. I do not answer either. I keep a seat open at my table for whatever future decides to show its ID. It is a seat for honesty. It has never gone out of style. On Fridays, I ride the first ferry just to watch the city shrug on its color. The captain's bell sounds, and I hear Maeve counting answers in my head. Too long, she would tease, then kiss my cheek. Perfect. I bring a small jar in my pocket. Back on the quay, I pass a donation table raising funds for a shelter that quietly saves elders from the sweet names of theft. I drop my sea glass charm into the jar and whisper to the morning, "Love isn't a receipt. Dignity doesn't go on sale." The sound it makes is very small and very permanent. I turn toward the day that wants me, not my wallet. If Owen and Sable drive by, they do not stop. I do not turn. My shoulders are level. My hands are light. I carry nothing that isn't mine and everything that is. On my kitchen shelf, the binder rests like a closed tide chart. Beside it, a bowl of lemons, bright as reasons. I can make curd, or pie, or just a glass of water that remembers summer. Choice is the quietest kind of wealth. I write today's line and mean it, autonomy kept. Then I open the window, let the harbor find my lungs again, and live my small, accurate life. Upstairs, the ceramics teacher shows me how to anchor my elbows. Center follows breath, she says. I press and the clay steadies, obedience that feels like worship. My neighbor in the hall brings basil and says, "We're glad you're here." I answer, "Me too. And here it land true." The wind chime nods, fluent in my name.